That's why Lao Tzu said, the 5 colors make a man blind, the 5 tones make a man deaf. Because if you can only see 5 colors, you're blind. And if you can only hear 5 tones in music, you're deaf. You see, if you force sound into 5 tones, you force color into 5 colors, you're blind and deaf. The world of color is infinite, as is the world of sound. And it is only through stopping, fixing conceptions on the world of color and sound that you really begin to hear it and see it.
Enough is enough! I have had it with these motherfucking snakes on this motherfucking plane! Everybody strap in! I'm about to open the fucking window.
What's up, you beautiful love doves? Welcome to the Barbarian Noetics podcast, where we stay dedicated to the elevation of the human spirit and, as always, to resisting this status quo. I am, as always, your loyal host, Little Raven. And I'm coming at you from a tranqui, mellow Saturday afternoon here in South Phoenix. I stayed up hella late last night, and so I slept in hard. And it was amazing. I slept hard in the paint. And I will say, I did turn off my Wi-Fi before I went to sleep, and I slept really, really well. So is there a correlation there? Maybe, I don't know. And I get it because it's kind of inconvenient, because then when I replugged my Wi-Fi, it took 10, 15 minutes for the system to reboot and everything like that. But at the same time, it's sleep is pretty priceless. So I'm just kind of notching that in the back of my mind cupboard and remembering it for later and sharing with all y'all. Anyways, I am sharing this interview with everybody today, and this is an interview I did with my good brother from another mother, mi hermano de otra madre, Christian Yordanov, doing good work out there in Portugal, and always enjoy speaking with him. And we did another interview recently that I'm going to be releasing as well on the feed. This was an interview that I did a while ago, and he released it on his podcast, Connecting Minds, which is a fantastic podcast, so please check it out if you have not done so already. Connecting Minds by Christian Yordanov, and he also does the Children's Health podcast. Anyway, I'm releasing this conversation because I want to share with everybody, and part of the reason I want to share is because it's part of my healing process, and this conversation that I'm sharing is part of my healing process, and healing from the cumulative grief. And I know that so many people in the world, and especially in the US and the West, are experiencing this sense of cumulative grief, where just so many of our elders have passed in just the past 1.5, 2 years. And it's a lot, I wasn't prepared for that. I had no idea what was about to happen, and losing people like your parents. I lost both my parents, and then uncles, and then family friends and godparents, and just losing so many elders in such a short time. It is difficult psychologically and spiritually. And my good soul sister in Austin sent me a really beautiful letter where she said she just wanted me to know that I wasn't alone. And she sent me a beautiful letter, and she introduced the concept of cumulative grief to me. And so that's what it is. And I'm still, I'll be healing from this for the rest of my life, of course. And so anyway, this conversation, we talk about all sorts of stuff. I actually don't even recall every single topic that's covered in the conversation, but I just remember I love the conversation. And then I do I open up in the conversation. I open up about just sort of what it's been like, and going through it, and how I've dealt with it, and the feelings that come up. And I just think it's an important conversation to have and be had and to share. So that is why I'm sharing it. So big shout out to my brother Christian Yordanov out there in Portugal doing good work, Connecting Minds and Children's Health podcast. And going to go ahead and share this interview with everybody. And also, I'm stoked right now because I just was outside practicing with my flail, and neighbor Reynaldo popped out, and I'm like, what's up? Because I hadn't talked to him for a while, and we're talking story and stuff. And he's all saying like, he's like, that's like one of the oldest weapons known to man. I'm like, yeah, I know. He's like, it's the Vikings. I'm like, I know, that's my ancestors. He's like, the only problem with the Vikings is they took people from other places. And I'm like, yeah, I know, that was pretty fucked up, right? Like, and anyways, yeah, not here for that at the Barbarian Noetics podcast. Can I just say, not here for taking people from other places and bringing them to your place without consent. That's not okay at all. So bad ancestors. Anyways, but the flail or the ball and chain is an amazing weapon, and I feel comfortable with it. And I know this might seem counterintuitive, but it's actually calming for me to practice with it. So I use it as it's a form of meditation. I go outside, I put on some reggaeton, and I practice with my flail. And so I was just talking story with Reynaldo, and I mentioned, I'm like, hey, I need like a better one, because the one I have it's good, but it's more of it's not like really meant for like work. It's more meant for like to look cool, because the chains are really like not thick enough and stuff like that. I need like a proper one. And I was telling him this, I'm like, if you ever see one, like, let me know. And he's like, brother, I can make that for you. And I was like, oh shit, I didn't even think about that. Neighbor Reynaldo, having been through the special period in Cuba, he like understands, I think I pronounced Cuba wrong just then, Cuba. In Cuba, he understands like how to fabricate stuff, and he's just an amazing, gifted mechanic, skilled man, so much knowledge. And I didn't even think about that he could like fabricate me one. So I'm just like jumping with joy right now, because neighbor Reynaldo, after he finishes working on this truck he's working on, is going to be designing me and fabricating me a proper flail / ball and chain. And I'm just like so stoked. I'm here for it 100%. So anyway, in a good mood and wanting to spread the good vibes, share the good vibes. And let's go ahead and get into this interview that I recorded a while ago with my good brother Christian Yordanov on his podcast, Connecting Minds, sharing it out. We call it a swapcast, baby. And I hope y'all are having a beautiful day. I'm sending lots of good vibes to you guys. And even recording this is like, my heart hurts a little bit, because it's just like, man, the cumulative grief thing is intense. But we process it and we work through it and we rise. We just keep moving up. We never look back. Well, we can glance back, but we keep moving up and we keep focusing forward. All right. I love you guys so much. Peace.
Back to the Connecting Minds podcast. Christian Yordanov here. Today I have little Raven of the Barbarian Noetics podcast on. Raven, in the short space of time that I know him, he's already a dear brother of mine. He's such a beautiful human, such a beautiful soul. And this was, we covered some fairly heavy topics on this podcast, but I just really appreciate his boundless positivity through adversity that he has faced in the past couple of years, and I really feel like it just this beautiful positivity exudes through this man, and it's a great pleasure to share with you the conversation we had with him. I was recently also on his podcast, Barbarian Noetics, so check out his podcast. Make sure you check out and subscribe to that, because it's let's just say it's unique. you're definitely you're in for a pleasant surprise in terms of how well produced his podcast is, and the quality of the topics, and the depth and the guests that he has on is top notch, right? So anyway, without further ado, this is Little Raven on the Connecting Minds podcast. Thanks for tuning in and enjoy the episode. Welcome back to the Connecting Minds podcast. Thanks for tuning in. Today, I have the pleasure of interviewing Little Raven of the Barbarian Noetics podcast. Raven, how are you, buddy?
I'm great today. I'm excited to be here, man. Thank you for having me on.
Yeah,
I
man,
love your
listen,
podcast. I love your work, and I'm excited to be here.
right back at you, bro. I love you. I love your vibe. Like, I love just the beauty of your soul resonates through your podcast. I absolutely just love that energy you're putting out. So it's a great honor to have you on.
Awesome. I appreciate you saying that, man. Likewise.
Let's give the listeners a little bit of your background, man. Who are you?
Yeah, for sure. So I've been doing this. I've been in the podcasting game. I started my first podcast was back in 2018. So I've been in it for a little minute now. The time has flown by, and I feel like for so many people, the scamdemic or the COVID project was really like the impetus that kind of got me fortified on my current path. It helped elucidate the direction I wanted to go with the podcast, and it really helped to motivate me. So before that happened, I was, I didn't know what I was doing, and I was just kind of putting myself out there and interviewing, like friends and family. And so the Barbarian Noetics podcast is dedicated to the elevation of the human spirit. So that's like the overriding kind of motif behind the whole podcast. And so, but I didn't really have a lot of consistency, and I was finding my way. It's kind of that type of thing of, if you're not sure exactly what to do, but you have to do something, just start somewhere. And not only the knowledge, but also the courage will kind of show up when you take that first step and you start moving forward. And I really did experience that, man. And as the longer I've continued, it's like the more clear it has become. But the major motif is that I'm doing my part to elevate the human spirit. My parents used to always say to me, you want to leave the world a better place than how you found it. And I took that to heart. And every episode I do, I really do pour my soul out into it. I really want to connect on a heart level with listeners. And one of the beautiful things about audio, I call it the rabbit holes of space and time, because it's quite mystical in a way, in that, we're recording this right now. We're at the time and space where we are. Listeners are going to be hearing this down the road or whatever. I don't even necessarily think the time is linear, but other times, other spaces, and it connects those times and spaces to people. So I think it's a very powerful medium. And the name Barbarian Noetics, a lot of people ask about the name. For folks who may not know, Noetics is actually a branch of philosophy. It's the study of the intellect. So it's kind of like, it's the study of thought itself. And my dad was a philosopher at heart as well. And we always would have, conversations growing up about the mysteries of the universe. And I've always just been fascinated with the ineffable, the unknowable. That's always really, that's what gets me excited. And so the podcast explores all sorts of topics that are like forbidden fruit topics or mysterious topics. The moment that you say to me, like, don't look at this, I'm going to look at that thing. So you can imagine that the COVID project really inspired me to look in a bunch of like really dusky hallways. But yeah, and the barbarian aspect of the podcast, basically the barbarians are people who reject the state. They're people that want to live outside the purview of the state. Like back in the Roman Empire, you were absorbed into the empire usually by force, and then you had to pay tribute in the form, you had to give a certain amount of what you grew or a certain amount of what you produced. The tax man would come by and collect. And that's what you had to do. That was your toll for existence, basically. It's like your existence requires that you pay us this shit. The barbarians refused that, and they were the ones on the outskirts. They were the ones outside the purview of the state. They refused to be degraded like that. And I think that that's a very beautiful idea, and it's a powerful idea that is becoming ever more apropos as as the state evolves through time. Now the state is kind of moving into this more transhuman agenda, where it's going to be like, to be a barbarian more and more is going to involve remaining human, holding fast to our humanity, what it is to be human. So that's another major theme of the podcast, is exploring what it actually is to be a human being in all the aspects of that.
Of course, they won't call those folks barbarians. They'll be called extremists or far right extremists, stuff like that, right?
Even worse, according to Yuval Noah Harari, they'll be called useless eaters.
Oh, bro, that guy, Jesus Christ.
There'll be people that don't have a purpose in society. That's how he describes the barbarians of the future. So if that doesn't get you fired up.
Like, dude, those people, like, are they beyond disgusting or what? I don't even know how to describe it.
Yeah, it's like a know thy enemy type thing. So I don't love listening to that guy speak, and I can't really make it through much, but I do peruse, like, when he's kind of like the spiritual thought leader of the World Economic Forum. He's like, I feel like he's kind of like Klaus's familiar. It's like his voice is like on Klaus's shoulder, like whispering in Klaus's ear, like rationalizing. And he looks like kind of like ferret-like or rat-like too. And he's kind of, he's very much like
a little demon, like a familiar. Look at this. See this?
Yeah.
So it's just for the listeners. So this is Sapiens, A Graphic History, Volume 2, The Pillars of Civilization by Yuval Noah Harari. And it's basically a graphic novel, right? So I was in a store here in Portugal, and I was just like, I saw there was English books. So I was like, well, let me check out. I always love to like buy books and stuff. So I just went through this book, and I'm like, are these graphic novels, are they supposed to target like young kids, like teenagers? And then I just like perused through it. I bought it just as like you know how you would buy like a World War II Nazi uniform or something like that. Like it's like just as an artifact of like the horrors of past times. So maybe like one day, there's like a picture. I remember I was showing my wife. There's a picture like of a shopping mall, and there's like some guard standing there, like very authoritative. And I was like, it's normalizing having like guards at every store, being surveilled. Just like I bought it more of a, like you said, know thy enemy, just to study the intricacies and the social engineering and the brainwashing of something like a book like this, And I have to be honest, I'm like, I don't even want to open it. I probably need to like smudge my hands now with some sage after touching it. But it's really kind of. I was hoping to keep today's episode topics fairly light, because we've been tackling some fairly heavy topics on the podcast recently. So let's just quickly change direction in another way.
You got it. Did you have anything particular you wanted to talk about?
Okay, no, it was kind of like if you had taken over with like a subject. No, bro, like I actually want to talk about we will talk about serious topics, because like we're not children, right? And I feel like anybody tuning in, like the maturity level of our audience here and your audience should be at a fairly high level. So I want to talk about, bro, mental health now. If you don't mind, like we can go as deep as you want, or as not deep as you want, but like you've had some challenges in the past, let's say year or so, and I'd love to, like, we've all had like this COVID period. Has been a very tough period, we've all had these tough periods. I personally believe over the last 2.5 years I did go through a lull in terms of my spirits. I believe I was in some mild sort of depression for some months. Um, and there was some very challenging times, especially with my wife. Had some issues, as well. We just had a kid, and we were alone, and not much help. So definitely, I think we all had some challenges. But what are, maybe let's, if you, whatever you want to share, and then maybe we can talk about how to actually rise above these things, and how to get ourselves back on, in sync with the beautiful wavelengths of the universe.
Yeah, absolutely. I love this topic, and listeners of the Barbarian Noetics podcast know that I am very open about my journey with mental health. It's been a continuous theme throughout the entire podcast. And the reason for that is, in my mind, that mental health is the foundation of everything. So, yes, there's the physical health you have. However, I would argue that your mental health is inextricably bound with your physical health as well. And conversely, you can be the most healthy, you can be the completely fit professional athlete, best shape of your life. But if you are struggling with the mental health aspect, all that athleticism and all the supplements in the world aren't going to do you much good, because again, it's like the foundation. It colors everything you see and everything you do. So I think the mental health topic is, it's an important one to talk about. And another aspect is, it's not talked about enough, in my humble opinion. Or I should say, it's a lot of people talk about it, but they use a lot of words without really saying anything. And I think the key when we talk about mental health is, like, you almost have to take a breath and connect with yourself in order to, like, communicate what it is that you're actually experiencing. Because advertising in the modern world has debased language. It's like cheapened the meaning of words. And this is something that I'm constantly trying to, like, understand better. I like to kind of, I do like absurdist skits for my podcast, and I talk a lot about, like, I poke fun at, like,
So
marketing
awesome.
and, like, corporate culture and
They're
stuff
so
like that.
awesome, bro. I'm sorry. You need to, like, do a compilation video or several series of this, because, bro, you could even sell that at CDs, like, or like, relics, bro. They're too awesome. Anyway, we'll talk about that later.
Thank you. I appreciate you saying that. Yeah, for those who don't have a ton of time, I always start off my episodes with a cold open, which is just like a absurdist skit. And it's like, first 4 or 5 minutes. So I always tell people who are really busy, just tune in for the first 4 or 5 minutes, download the show and
Sorry.
listen to the skit.
How long does one of these skits take you to create, write, and do?
It's a long time is the short answer. It depends on kind of where I'm at, like what kind of flow I'm in. But it takes a full day usually to.
That's art. That is true fucking art, bro.
Thank you. I appreciate you saying that, man. I do, because as we talked off mic a little bit, sometimes it kind of feels like you're a voice in the wilderness in the podcast game, and
yeah.
You put so much time and energy and soul energy into something, and I appreciate you saying that, man. And I actually I've been planning for a long time to make a compilation, like, series of episodes.
So I can't wait for that shit.
That is coming. But yeah, so back to the mental health aspect. So because advertising in the corporate world has cheapened and debased language, there's all these words that get thrown around, such as ding, 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 mindfulness. So everyone and their uncle is always talking about mindfulness. Corporations are trying to use mindfulness to sell you products. The behavioral managers are trying to use mindfulness as a way to, like, wriggle into your psyche and influence you. But it's like, when you're not connected to the actual meaning of the word doesn't no longer means anything. And that's really dangerous. And I think that actually leads to a lot of things like depression and anxiety, because we're like, we use language as a way to navigate reality. It's like a very foundational means of understanding, like, where we are and who we are and what we're doing. And when the meanings of these words get cheapened, when people are utilizing these words but they have an angle and they're trying to use them to influence you to do something, that's hard on the psyche. So I tell people, like, have compassion for yourself. I like to say, like, treat yourself as you would your best friend. Like, your best friend comes to you and they're feeling down and out.
I
you're
can't
not
teabag
gonna.
myself.
You'd have to remove a few ribs, and then But yeah, it's like, why is it that we are kinder? Oftentimes, we're kinder to our best friends than we are to our own self, and that again comes back to like understanding how important mental health is, and in order for you to achieve anything. So I've struggled with depression and anxiety my entire life. My earliest memories involve like mental health crises. Like my earliest
Jeez.
memories are involve me like crying as a really young kid, just like crying and playing with like the artificial lights in my childhood home, like refracting off my tears and like making prisms and stuff like that. Like those are
Whoa.
some of my very earliest memories. And a lot of people had challenging childhoods. I definitely had challenging childhoods. I won't get into all the details of that, but I think that's something that a lot of people can relate to. But it's deeper than that. It also has to do, I believe, with that. And this is another central theme of my podcast, is our bodies are built to exist in harmony with and in intimacy with nature. We evolved to hunt, gather, gather around fires, catch our own food, explore and discover like which herbs around us are medicinal, which ones can expand our consciousness. Like that's what we're actually built for. And so as we navigate this modern world now, where everything is so highly like, there's like this layer between us and the natural world at every turn. And I always like to give the caveat that I'm not a Luddite. I appreciate technology. Technology allows us to do our work, and it allows for a lot of amazing things, and it's going to have an important role moving forward. But I believe it was Khalil Gibran who said, like, beware the person who enters the home a guest and then soon becomes the master. And I see that that relates to the role of technology in our lives. And it actually does tie into mental health as well. Like how are we using technology for our own selves? Are we just scrolling endlessly and just using it as a means to like distract ourselves? As a creator, there's a balance between the media that we consume and the media that we produce. So the media that I consume, I'm always asking myself, is this inspiring me? And as you say, like, we're all adults, and the audiences for both of our shows are aware of like what's happening in the world. So I'm not talking about like burying your head in the sand and only trying to consume media that quote unquote positively inspires you, because I call that toxic positivity, where people
like
live
that.
in a world where, we live in a world of duality. There's the light and the dark. And this is something that I'm just endlessly fascinated with, the interplay between light and dark. And that's really what makes it's what makes life worth living, and it's also like what we're confronted with. So it's like, but you can still be inspired, I believe, by dark subject matter. It's like, it's about the way in which you discuss it, the way in which you digest it. So anyway, I've struggled with depression my entire life. I've talked openly on the podcast that I did try to take my life a number of years ago, and there was some divine intervention, is how I can describe it, that prevented me from doing so. It was, as if it was not my time, or, I had something that I needed to accomplish. And so that was like a major turning point for me. Another major turning point for me is when I stopped drinking alcohol. So for me personally, alcohol has been a very negative force. And I also like to give a caveat that I'm not trying to say that alcohol as a entity in and of itself is necessarily evil. I have friends that are able to drink truly moderately and they react a certain kind of way to alcohol. But for me, generational alcoholism, I've got like Russian and German blood. It's just like, I'm like half alcohol already. So I never could figure out how to drink well. And so when those two things, when you start now combining depression with alcohol, then that's when things get really gnarly.
Yeah.
And for me, I struggled with like blackouts, where as I learned more about them later, like I discovered that, you're actually like your consciousness is being possessed during those times. Like you're at such a low frequency that your higher self kind of like leaves the building, and it leaves this amazing machinery that we have as human beings. It leaves that open for, in my opinion, like lower frequency entities, and that's no way to live.
Yeah.
So it's the process of overcoming it has been, number one, being able to understand what is actually happening and being able to talk about it freely. And then secondly, it's been like actual practical techniques that I've used to maintain and to, because we all have ups and downs. So it's like you can reach a state of mental equilibrium, but that is probably not going to last forever. You're probably going to continue to have, in the Big Lebowski he says strikes and gutters, you're going to have those ups and downs. But for me, it's been meditation has been the number one tool that I've used to pull myself out of my depression. And if you want, we can talk more about meditation, or if you have another question about the mental health, I've been talking for a while. So
Yeah, bro, this is something for the past while so my normal routine has been for quite a long time. I wake up in the morning and I would immediately start listening to a podcast or whatever subject matter I'm researching at the moment. And so I stopped doing that, and instead of touching my phone or being on my phone or listening to something, I just I sit by my red light therapy lamp for at least 10-20 minutes and just let the light hit my face, and I just think. And I've tried to like meditate, but I've talked about this on the podcast before, I just cannot figure out why I cannot build this meditation practice. I feel like we talked about this before we started recording. Some of us, myself included, we have a fear of failure that's been plaguing us in some way, shape, or form all our life. But some of us also have a fear of success, which probably for similar reasons, it also rears its ugly head. So I cannot figure out. I know it would be beneficial. Um, do what? How did you out of necessity build this meditation habit? Were you like drawn to it? How did you sort of build it, and what kind of, and did you use any specific techniques that you could maybe share with us?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say that it was out of necessity, and it was the depression that kind of drove me to look for solutions. Because again, it's like, okay, I'm here, I'm here for a purpose. What the hell is it, and why am I? When I was depressed, like, why am I so just like I'm not feeling this, And so I discovered yoga. That was one of the first things I discovered when it took me a few times to quit drinking. I had to try to stop drinking like 4 or 5 times before I finally stopped. And now I haven't had a drink in almost 9 years. But the first time I stopped drinking, my friend introduced me to yoga. And so I started going to a yoga class taught by this gentleman who he had trained for years and years. He had done the whole thing where he like lived in a cave for a month and trained, and he was just a very like centered person, and he showed just like some basic techniques. So that was the first like practical technique that I learned that really helped a lot. And you don't have to be like super flexible or like this, so much in Western society gets twisted into a thing of like an ego thing, or something where you're like comparing yourself, or just doing it to like, get a yoga butt or something like that. I think it's important that we recognize that yoga is like it's an instrument for knowing yourself, and it's an instrument for aging well. It's an instrument for keeping your limbs and joints limber, as you get older, so you can continue to navigate about the world. So the beautiful thing about yoga is that inherent in the practice is this mental aspect. The poses that you are achieving are difficult, and you hold them for a certain amount of time. So it's going to like challenge the body, which kicks in the mind, which is going to start with the mental chatter of like, oh, you're not good at this. This is really hard. I want to stop. I'm hungry.
Stop being a hippie.
This is stupid. What are you doing, hippie? What are you trying to? Yeah. And that's not to get sidetracked, but inner critic is like a massive aspect of the mental health journey. And I'm still figuring this out. All the stuff that we're talking about right now is like, this is all stuff that I'm in the process of learning myself, so all I can do is kind of share what I've gleaned over time, but it's all sort of in progress. And I'm constantly, every day, I'm striving to just become a better person. Also, every day I'm have to face my own demons and, the ups and downs of life. So it's like, this is all in process. But from the yoga, I had good results in terms of like, I noticed that I felt good afterwards. If I actually did the whole class and I gave it my all, my body felt good. I would get a little endorphins going. And also mentally, I was like a little bit calmer and clearer. And so that piqued my interest then into like, well, what is this meditation thing, And at least the way I grew up in the Midwest, in the heart of the empire. Chicago, it's like one of the main engines of the empire. Like I always used to think like, why the hell did I don't know if you ever thought about this, like growing up, I always used to think, why is it that I was incarnated the way that I was, why was I incarnated as a human being in the United States of America and not like macaw somewhere in the jungles of Ecuador? And I think that's an important question to ask because it helps to shed light on like what our purpose is. And I personally believe that things don't happen by accident, that like, where we're incarnated, all that kind of stuff. My personal belief is it's part of, it's like for our soul, things are put in our life because it feeds our soul in a certain kind of way so that we can achieve a higher state of consciousness. I kind of think of life as like.
Are you sure a fish didn't fuck a monkey and now that's why we're here by mistake?
No,
Are you sure though?
I think it was a pangolin that fucked a bat. I'm pretty sure. Or it was a raccoon dog. It had something to do with raccoon dogs. Those
pesky little raccoon dogs.
They're always starting pandemics. They're always just. But yeah, so to answer your question about like, it's natural for it to be difficult to break into meditation. And one of the number one things is that people have a tendency to put rules on themselves and put limitations on themselves. So I always tell folks like, there are no rules for how you best meditate. You are going to meditate in a way that makes sense for you, depending on all the different aspects that make you unique. And so like a certain process that was, designed by a certain person at a certain time, it might not be the right one for you. And I find that that's a major obstacle or impediment to a lot of people going deeper into meditation is they feel like, oh, I'm not doing this right. Or I don't, for example, people always say like, I have racing thoughts when I meditate. And my answer is like, of course you do, like it's completely natural to have racing thoughts all the time, including while we meditate. It's like so much of life. It's not what actually occurs, but how you deal with it. And so in meditation with the racing thoughts, a technique that has helped me a lot is I like to use visualization, and I visualize the thoughts as clouds passing in the sky. And so it's completely natural, just like clouds passing in the sky, but it's also not permanent. Like the cloud moves across the sky and eventually it moves out of your field of vision. In the same way, these thoughts, and sometimes you have thoughts that keep coming up over and over again. It's okay. You can just keep visualizing clouds and just allowing that thought to float across the sky of your psyche until eventually it's no longer prominent. So I just think that the number one thing is to not put rules and impediments on yourself. A lot of people get tripped up with the whole like, oh, am I supposed to sit like full lotus or whatever? I still can't do the full lotus position. I can do the half lotus. But, you can also meditate lying down. You can meditate walking. You can even, I believe you can even meditate while you're like running or working out. It's for me, it has to do with your breathing and your focus. So like that to me is the crux of what meditation is paying a lot of attention to your breath, kind of like watching and observing your breath, like bearing witness to your breath. And then by extension, you're bearing witness to your very existence. And so, it's that, I believe that there's an Alan Watts quote where he's like, what happens when I'm aware of the me that is aware of the me that is aware of the me? It's like you start to bear witness to yourself. And for me, that really opens up a lot of space because it's all of a sudden, it's like, it's mysterious and it's kind of cool. Like what is that force that is bearing witness to you, bearing witness to yourself meditating? I find it full of energy. When I dive into that, it fills me with energy and vitality. And the other nice thing that I've discovered through meditation is that it's a positive cycle, because the deeper you go, the better it feels for me. Like, it opens up, I guess you could call it Kundalini energy, or there's a bunch of ways you could talk about it. But for me, like, when I get into a deep state, I feel physically blissful. Like, I feel physical energy running up and down my spine. And I feel physically as though there's no boundary between myself and the world, which is incredibly cathartic, because we're so used to always operating within the boundaries of our perceived selves. And when we can let go of that boundary dissolves. Perhaps listeners maybe can relate during like psychedelic states. This has perhaps happened to people. But that to me is like, it fills up your battery, and then it gives positive reinforcement to encourage you to continue practicing, because you feel like that's actually something I felt. I experienced that, like I know that that's real because I experienced that. So,
and it's like, especially like with these lower vibration psychotropic things, they will never create the same, let's say, buzz or blissful feeling as your own as your own mind can. So I think it's awesome that to be able to achieve that, and it's kind of giving me inspiration to maybe try a little bit harder at it, because I also have I've actually, I'm waiting on test results now. I did a DNA test that tests for specific genes that relate to addiction, depression, and neurodegenerative things. So it has to do with the dopamine receptors, basically dopamine, serotonin, and a few other things obviously related to neurochemistry. So I'm actually, from understanding my other genetics that I've looked at, my idea is that I break down dopamine quite fast, because that the enzyme that breaks down dopamine, it's fully functional per se in me. And for example, my wife, she's got a 50% polymorphism, where in folks like that, they break down estrogen and dopamine and certain other chemicals and hormones more slowly, that can have issues with itself. So to be able to break down dopamine very fast means you now have a lack of dopamine, and when you have a lack of dopamine, that leads to thrill-seeking behavior, fear seeking, adventure seeking, anything that raises dopamine. So it could be like other stuff like drugs and driving fast cars. And I have one friend that is into all of that stuff, and he's like a thrill seeker, adventure seeker, almost to the point of putting himself and wants us in danger when we're camping. So I would love to like test his genes, and I'm almost betting that him and me will have similar sort of profiles, right? And I've always had an addictive personality, I believe. And when you say something runs in the family, like a certain trait like that, I believe it's a lot of it has to do with like certain just genetic variations that basically we inherit from our parents. And over time, when the lineage gets mixed down the line, different kids, you get a mixture of other genes, so you have different predispositions and vulnerabilities that manifest, so that those risk profiles change down the lineages as the kids go down, the family tree. But I really, and I had an osteopath that I was working with. She was highly recommending me to do things like embodiment practices like qigong or tai chi, just to kind of tame this, I don't know if you want to call it the cunnilingus energy or whatever you're calling it there.
The Kundalini? Was that, did you say that?
I swear to God, I am an adult. I am a fully grown adult. I had to crowbar that joke in there. I am a fully grown man,
That was
folks.
very subtle. Well done.
I'm not 13 years old, guys. I swear to God. So, yeah, I'm really like I'm hoping in after this big project that I was telling you about sort of gets released. I'm hoping to be able to like just spend a few weeks, spend an hour a day just to kind of focus, just harness this energy. So I'm not looking for outward ways to tame it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, for sure. And I would say don't even necessarily put the pressure of an hour if you're speaking about like developing your meditation practice. Just start, and I mean this seriously, start at like 3 minutes and then move to 5 minutes of like actual like what an intentional meditation type practice. I think that's all it takes to get started.
Mm-hmm.
And one thing, I like things to be simple. So for me, a very simple practice is you just take as deep a breath as you possibly can. And it does help to be sitting up straight for this one. You take as deep a breath as you possibly can and really like allow your diaphragm to expand, and you really let your stomach get big, and then when you feel like you can't take in any more, you take in a tiny bit, little more, hold that for a couple beats, and then exhale slowly. And same thing where you exhale completely and entirely. So it's a nice, slow, kind of gradual process. Exhale entirely until you have nothing left to exhale, and then exhale a tiny little bit more, hold that a couple beats, and then repeat. So all you're doing is breathing, but it's intentional breath. And you can experiment with breathing in through your nose and breathing out through your mouth. But again, I just encourage people not to be dogmatic about anything and kind of listen to their own body and follow what your body is telling you. Like for the podcast, I always say that I use my passion as my compass. When I'm not sure what to do an episode about, I just think about, well, what is exciting me right now? What do I find interesting? Same way with meditation, like follow what your body is telling you, because certain things are going to make more sense for your physiology than for others. So yeah, we can talk more about this off mic, get into the nitty gritty details of it. But yeah. I'm such a believer in, because of my own personal experience, you can't teach anybody anything. People learn through their own personal experience, and through my own personal experience, it's been the meditation practice, which has really like allowed me to pull myself out of my depression, and even though I still experience it from time to time, it's not as dire, because I know even when I'm deep in it, that I know in the back of my mind that I have the tools to pull myself out of it. And the beautiful thing about the meditation and the breathing is that it's like there's no external factors there. It's all you can do it within your own self. I have a quick question for you about the dopamine. Mm-hmm. I've heard people say that dopamine is different from like serotonin or oxytocin in that the body cannot produce it itself. Is that true? Or is the body able to produce its own dopamine?
Yeah, I believe so. I think I read somewhere that about 90% of the serotonin gets synthesized in the gut by the microorganisms in the gut. So folks that have like serotonin based depression, where you run, not like someone goes to a doctor and they just slap them on an SSRI, but some practitioners will do like, there's proxy markers for serotonin and dopamine and some other stuff. So you can see on like a urine test proxy markers. If they're low, it means that there may be a low serotonin production. And those people, if you correlate a low serotonin level with gut dysbiosis, like the gut is infected or some other stuff is going on, like the beneficial bacteria are very low, you could try giving a serotonin precursor like 5-HTP, 5-hydroxytryptophan,
mm-hmm.
And or just tryptophan, the amino acid, on an empty stomach, for example, and see if that actually helps. And increasing the serotonin can help some folks, which was the initial premise behind the SSRI drugs, But in terms of dopamine, I'm pretty sure it's synthesized by from phenylalanine is the amino acid, which is then turned into tyrosine, I believe, and then to L-dopa, and then it's synthesized to dopamine. So there's
Mm.
a series of enzymes that synthesize that. I'm pretty sure it's all done that way.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I'm inclined to believe that. I think our bodies are such incredible machines that I'm inclined to believe that we can produce our own if we're given the proper tools. And
It's just it's more, for example, there's a certain bacteria like Clostridia species that they can inhibit an enzyme called dopamine, for example, DBH, dopamine beta hydroxylase. That one is, I believe, it was responsible to convert dopamine into norepinephrine. Now, it causes too little norepinephrine when so basically this they create this chemical that gets jammed into the DBH enzyme that causes the enzyme to be inactivated permanently, and then there's a buildup of dopamine, not enough norepinephrine, that can cause a bunch of issues because dopamine is quite a reactive molecule. So
mm,
crap can happen, and we are so we're almost at the mercy of the environment when it comes. Like, I love what you said earlier, that mental health is the foundation, and when you say the word inextricably bound, the physical body and the mind, this is again something like I in my book on autism, I believe I said something along the lines of the mind and body are inextricably connected. So you we're very much on the same wavelength with some of the language we use, even,
yeah.
um so if someone has like a gut dysfunction of some sort, certain foods or vitamin deficiencies, that can lead to imbalances that cause certain chemicals to be not enough of, or to be too much of, and that can cause imbalances. And I believe some people's depression is genuinely due to like just biochemical stuff and not necessarily life events going on, or genetic factors exacerbated by environmental dietary factors.
Yeah, I love that. I really appreciate that about your worldview. Is it's very solution oriented, and it's very much like taking the power back within our own control. Certainly, as I said, a lot of us have had difficult childhoods. A lot of us have experienced trauma and stuff like that, and shit happens in life. I just had a break in my apartment on top of everything else that happened.
Are you serious?
My apartment got broken into, and a bunch of shit
Dude.
got trashed. But
Whoa.
I'm still here, and somehow it's like, thank heaven for small blessings. My podcasting stuff was untouched, so it's like I could focus on the fact that a bunch of my shit got trashed, or I could focus on the fact that my podcasting stuff with all my all the stuff I've worked so hard on was kind of magically untouched. So it's
Yeah,
like,
bro.
but yeah, so shit happens in life, but I love the fact that you bring it back to like what you can control, which is, for example, like your diet, and I just think that's so powerful and important, rather than, it's like there's all sorts of different external tools you can use to enhance or perceived enhance, with all like the SSRIs and everything that's being dispensed like Pez candy. But how
Yeah.
much of that could be, how much of that could be actually like better reinforced through the food that you take in and the supplements that you take in that are,
Oh yeah.
not toxic to your body. So I just think it's so important to constantly bring things back to the solution oriented.
Yeah.
In the independent media, a lot of us are very tuned in to like all the shit that's going on in the world. And I believe one thread that connects a lot of us is that really what we're trying to do is we're trying to understand the world better. We're trying to shed light on the world so that we can navigate it better. And that's very important. It's critical to understand kind of what we're up against and what we're dealing with. But the pitfall of that is that you can then get kind of lost in the negativity, in the shit. And,
Exactly.
like, speaking of, like, you're spending all day watching Yuval Noah Harari clips and not spending any time meditating. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like
bro.
that's going to impact your psyche negatively too. So
I
it's like,
think that's what got me into a little bit of a depression, bro. That I was mentioning earlier. I was
yeah,
way too much into that stuff, and I've spoken about this before. After I was on Charlie Robinson's podcast there. I think it was late November, early December, and we only talked about solutions. And it's just since then I've just been focusing much more on solutions, and I've been so much happier, bro. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, it's important, and it's important like to inspire others too, because if you have when people really start working together on something, it's incredible what we can accomplish. There are
Oh
no
yeah.
limitations to what we can accomplish, and we do have the tools to strive. We have the tools to create parallel societies. Humans have done it for thousands of years. We know how to live well together. We know how to be fair towards one another. We know how to barter. We know how to create alternate systems of value. We know how to do it. It's a matter of like remembering, and that is tied in
Anarchy
with,
is the default.
yeah, I agree with that for sure. Because it just translates to no rulers is what it translates to. So, and I'm listening to two books right now on the conquest of the Aztec Empire and the conquest of the Incan Empire, and it's for another project that I'm working on. In fact, one of
Interesting.
my skits for the podcast is going to be like a story where I'm kind of going to create like an alternate history, alternate reality involving the Incans. I won't give too much away, but what comes through listening to these histories is that, like, in a way it makes it even more tragic than I'd already had a sense of like this is going to be a tragic story of how these empires were subjugated, but learning about the subjugation that was happening internally in both empires before the conquistadors arrived, really, that like what we call civilization, and this is why I consider myself I'm proud to be a barbarian, because what we consider civilization is really just the division of class. It's like dividing people into different classes, where certain classes have more rights and privileges than others, and then there's like a class that just gets the shit end of the stick. And there's all these different sophisticated ways of rationalizing this, like in the caste system, for example, where oh, this is your karma, or in the future what they're gonna try to manifest, which we're not gonna let them, but the vision they have is like, oh, well, you don't have the chip implanted in your brain, so therefore now you're part of a lower caste because you don't have the same capacities we do. My response to that is like, have fun with the bugs, because now you have like a buggy ass piece of hardware in your brain, and that's it's one
Yeah.
thing when you have to like restart your phone because your phone is like kirking out. It's going to be another when the chip in your head breaks down and you're like, so have fun with that. But anyways, but yeah, so that is that's basically, it comes down to the fact that I agree with you. Anarchy is the default, and we know how to exist in a good way on this planet, and it's just a matter of remembering how, and also believing in one another and believing in ourselves. So it's like, in order to bring a dream to reality, there's tangible aspects of it. You have to like learn certain skills. You might have to get certain equipment to make things happen. But underpinning all of that, and it's ties in with how mental health is the foundation, is the belief that you can achieve it is the foundation. And so the solution orientation is so critical, because it inspires us, it connects us, it bonds us, and it imbues us with a belief that we can do it. We can make this happen,
I love your attitude, bro. Absolutely. That's why I like resonate so much with you. Like this is and lately I've been more positive, but I've had it has to do with my upbringing and stuff. I've tended to be quite self-critical and critical of others for you know for the last 3 decades, and even like even now I'm still at times struggling with um just having conversations in my head with people that something, a conversation didn't go my way or the right way, or there was some slight conflict or whatever, and I'm just struggling to. I love what you say. It's people learn by doing, and I've been very often like I've had issues with letting go of it could be even be with like a family member or a friend. I'm trying to help with their with their health, and like I'm giving them like advice, and they're just like being stupid, and I'm like, I just have to. It's not my kid. It's not my wife. You know, it's my kid, my wife, and my dog. These are like my immediate family members that I have sort of some direct influence over, so and I can help them if I deem necessary. But anybody outside of that, I can offer advice, or I can wait for them to ask for advice. But even if they ask for advice, I give the advice, and or I offer some help. If they don't want it, I should be very gracious in saying that is their choice. And it's like I was reading this morning. I was in my morning reading time. I just love reading various different kinds of books. I have this book on Stoic philosophy, and
Mm.
I forgot exactly what the snippet was, but it had something to do with, if you like, if you were, let's say you're an anarchist and you believe you deserve your freedom and nobody can tell you anything, um as if you're a true anarchist, you should be able to say, well, if I don't want to be told what to do, if I want to make my own choices, then anybody else should be afforded that same right and privilege. So, it's stuff I've been reflecting on. I'm trying to transcend this shit and just basically get my head out of other people's affairs. It's it could be the savior complex. I've been sort of reflecting on that, where the savior complex, when you're trying to fix the world and your own fucking backyard is a mess. So what's your thoughts on that? You don't seem to have that, but did you ever experience it? Any sort of reflections on that?
Yeah, I appreciate you asking me that. I was actually going to segue into a similar topic because I wanted to get your thoughts on this. So just a little bit of backstory that I've experienced. A lot of the elders in my family have passed on just in the past year, including both of my parents. And I, you know, I had to come to terms very early in the COVID project that the people I loved so much weren't listening to me when I would voice my concerns and give them some reading and just even try to engage with, like, you know, I'm talking about the injection. And I really tried very hard to convince those that I loved to not get it. I would use different tactics, but I was unsuccessful, and pretty much just kind of seen as wacky Raven, just with my ideas. And then I had to watch people that I love so deeply. I had to watch their health decline, and then I had to watch them pass. And this is like deeply wounding experience. And so, like everything, you have to look at the lesson that it gives. And that's been one of the major lessons has been coming to terms with the fact that you have to allow people grace to make decisions, even when you know in your heart that decision is going to hurt them. Because if you try to just like dig in your heels and battle, all you're going to do is create animosity. I could have created a dynamic where I wasn't even talking to my family, and then they and that would have been it. I can't do that. It's not my way of being. So I just basically accept it. I hope for the best. And I maintained that closeness up until the very end. And but it's hard to talk about, and that's why I'm tripping over my words, is because it's a very difficult thing to come to terms with, that what you're describing. When you know something deep in your heart, and then you want to share that with people that you love, and they reject that, and then make decisions that deep in your heart are hurtful to them, that's a very difficult thing to process. And I don't think there's any easy ways of answering it. I do think that one aspect that's important is the whole knowing enough to know that you don't know everything. So I like to always remind myself of that like, I'm also fallible. I'm not omniscient. I don't have all the answers. I believe that our intuitions are very strong, and then you can back up your intuition with research and all this kind of stuff. But at the end of the day, I don't know everything, and I don't know 100%. I don't have that kind of power in this reality. And so I think that aspect is important, and just kind of focusing on what makes people beautiful, even when they're making bad decisions, even when they're being idiots, focusing on that everyone has that divine spark within them, the solar spark, that thing that imbues everything with life. We can always focus on that and just take a step back and realize that the only way that people can learn is through their own personal experience. And the hard part about that is that sometimes that involves, very dire consequences. That people's personal experience because of decisions has to involve very dire consequences. And but yeah, like you said, you can focus on your immediate environment. I've been trying to take a step back from, I said at the beginning that my parents always used to say, you want to leave the world a better place than how you found it. That's like one of my guiding principles, but I've had to take a step back from thinking that I can somehow save the world. That's not what I'm here to do. I'm here to engage with the people that are in my world. And I think that's the power of like expanding your world out, because, now you and I are having this conversation across the ocean. We're connecting the thoughts that you imbue in me. I'm going to be sharing with others. And that way we can make our worlds a lot bigger. But we can't, if we put it on ourselves to save the world, or even save another person like that, we're going to drive ourselves mad, and we're going to become resentful and bitter. And that, I think, is like one of the main obstacles in the truther community and the independent media in general, is you just trying to rise above the bitterness and the resentment at the fact that, as of now, there's still a lot of people that are just not awake to the things that we discuss every day on our shows. But yeah.
So you said everyone has the divine spark. You don't believe the stuff about NPCs and whatnot, do you?
The NPCs. So do you mean like, I know of the concept of NPCs that, but
that some people don't have the divine spark, other people don't have a soul, or non-player characters like out of a game. So some folks think it could be as few as 1 to 5% or 10 to 15% of the people that you meet are actually like have a truly, a soul, a divine spark. You don't believe that kind of stuff, I take it.
Yeah, correct. I believe that some people make decisions that render themselves into NPCs. So if you just are someone that chooses to just go along with the flow and not ask questions and remain willfully ignorant of things, you make yourself into an NPC, which I suppose has I don't think there's any benefits to that type of life, but I guess depending on what you want, if you just want to not be bothered and, just live out your days, then maybe people perceive some benefit to turning themselves into NPCs. But my belief is that everyone does have the divine spark. It's just that some people make decisions to render themselves like non-consequential in the greater reality. And I just find that this is another tricky thing too, is having compassion for people without being patronizing. So I don't want to be like, oh, I feel bad for those. It's just like, that's not me. And folks like that who choose to be ignorant are obviously not going to want to listen to what I have to say. And when people check out my podcast, it's like a real quick litmus test to find out if they're kind of more of that NPC mentality, because some people will hear a couple episodes and never talk to me again. And it's like, all right, well, and that's that. And the important thing about that is that they will never talk to me again. The people that, a lot of people disagree with what I have to say, and that's great, because I want to be able to have dialogue and speak with people. I can probably learn something too over here, but if you don't even want to ask questions or dialogue with the person or idea that you don't want to face, then that's where that willful ignorance comes in. And then it's the whole, if you don't have a plan, you become a part of someone else's plan. And, I don't want to be a part of anybody else's plan, much less the parasitic class. So
absolutely, bro. It's like, I mean, that's the anarchist ethos, it's like, you just want to make your own decisions. You want to live your own life. You want to choose what to do with your time, your money, your resources. And nobody, it's nobody's business to meddle in your affairs. You can share what you do. You can do anything you want to do. If some people that they want to show their entire life on Facebook or Instagram, that's one thing. But to have a phone that's constantly spying on you, now some rights are being infringed. That's not okay.
Yeah, and even worse than that, it's like, yeah, that's a right that you actually have, that you're voluntarily giving up.
Yeah.
And so much of the power dynamic at play right now is like, it's in training people to be meek and subservient. I remember from the jump in the US, there's the TSA, which started after the 9/11 inside job. And that, now when you go through the airport, you have to like take off your shoes and take off your belt, and all your stuff gets x-rayed, and they paw through all your stuff. And it was so clear to me from the jump that this is like conditioning. It's conditioning people to give up their rights like that. And it's always, it's such an old game. It's like always in the name of supposedly for your safety or whatever.
Yeah.
But it's like, that's why it's important to have principles, because then when you're tempted to like, I don't know. And it's, I go on planes and stuff like that. So it's not like I don't ever fly, but I actually try to have conversations like as much as possible without getting arrested. I try to have conversations with the agents, and I've had some pretty interesting ones where they've even acknowledged to me that like, yeah, this is pretty messed up. This doesn't seem like the right thing to do. And, all this kind of stuff. So it's like, and just connecting like that with people, it's very important. But yeah, so I did want to ask you another question about the,
Sure.
We talked about this a little bit off mic about, so I know that I'm not the only one that has experienced a lot of loss and that is continuing to experience loss. As we all know the numbers, that the all-cause mortality is way up, and a lot of our elders and people from all ages, but especially elders, are dying, in my mind, before their time. I was supposed to move in with my dad this month. Actually, we were supposed to move in together because my mom passed away first. So my dad was alone, and his lease was going to run out, and we were going to move in together. And I was like really looking forward to that. And that was going to be a chance for us to connect in his golden years. And
how old were they, if you don't mind asking?
My dad was 71 and my mom was 70. And they had like good health, and then their health declined rapidly after the injection. So they unfortunately were definitely doubled. And then I think they got the booster, but didn't tell me, because I was begging them not to get the booster. And then one day they stopped talking about the booster, and it was, I believe it was the booster that ended up ending their lives prematurely. And so what do you do with that? And I this is a bit of a rhetorical question. I'm figuring this out myself, but like, when it becomes so personal, and this feels like it is an attack, and it's like a personal attack, and it's taking these years away from people that we love, and taking years of being able to connect and bond, like all those conversations. I still like, for the rest of my life now, when I'm reading a book, I'm always going to think like, oh, I can't wait to talk to my dad about this. And now I don't have a chance to talk to him in this reality anymore. Yeah. I do want to say that I do still feel a connection with my parents and my ancestors. But it's on a different realm, and it's a different type of connection. It goes without saying. We're not sitting at the dinner table in this reality anymore discussing a book. It's more in deep meditation. I'll be able to get a sense of their energy, and I can communicate with them. And I believe that they are assisting me from the beyond. That's my personal belief. So it's not that I don't have any relationship with them, but the relationship is completely changed. And what do we do with that? Like, so the first thing as a human, it's like you feel this anger, this righteous indignation is the first feeling that you get. And I think that it's natural to feel that way. But it's like, how do you kind of like make right on, how do you like avenge your loved one's early demise? Like, how do you go about doing that? I believe a lot of it is the information battle and being a source of light, elucidating the darkness in the world. But it's just like, it's hard to have to continue to engage in a system that killed your parents, I guess, is what it boils down to.
Yeah. Bro, it's like, okay, we're back after some technical difficulties. So as I was saying, for me, what one of the major things that got me into natural health was seeing my grandmother deteriorate greatly in the last years of her life, and just what the doctors were the butchers that facilitated this. And to be honest with you, just to kind of answer your, I know your question was somewhat rhetorical, and I don't think there can be an answer for something like this. um, um, I definitely was angry and frustrated and stuff like that, but it's not a productive emotion. And it's not, it's like how that saying goes, we don't pay we don't pay it back, we pay it forward. So I feel like, I'm talking about not paying it back like vengeance. That's another unproductive thing. I'm talking about to make the world a better place. We cannot right the wrongs of the past. We cannot make amends with, in the past, things that happened in the past. But we can do is change our ways, or be the be creative, be the change in the world that we wish we had seen at the time. So, for example, with this detox course I've told you about, this is the information I wish I had 5 years ago, or 10 years ago, or 15 years ago, or when I was 18. So I said to myself at one point, I want I want people to be able to prevent these quote unquote diseases of aging, which are diseases of fucking systemic poisoning of the population,
Yes. Yep.
facilitated by a bunch of fucking, as one dude I interviewed, Jahan Satar, the men in the butcher coats. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Which is very aptly said, very
Yes.
astute observation. So I feel like we we have to not necessarily dwell on the past, not focus on the future, but take positive actions today. And this goes back to the solutions focus we were talking about, and just make sure the 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 things that we have control over, we influence them in such a way so that hopefully other people don't succumb to this. You know what I mean? So I guess maybe it's a roundabout way of saying, or it's like it's my way of coping with the pain, because
Hmm.
again, I know for a fact that getting angry is, what are you gonna do? Like, we gonna go burn down a parliament building, a hospital? You go, like, there's nothing you can do. Like,
Right.
these organizations, they're smart, like they're decentralized. It's like a hydra with, you know an infinite amount of heads. So the solution, it's like they talk about in the Kybalion. If you're in a particular plane, you have this sort of rhythm, and polarity. So you swing from like the bliss to the agony, or the hellish, uh, pain and suffering. The astute master vibrates out of it to a new level. I'm not saying I'm an astute master, or I know
Mm.
how to do that, or I fully even comprehend what the hell they're talking about, but
Mm.
I think it's worthy of reflection on that, to see how can we transcend this. Because at the end of the day, what seems, at least in my opinion, what seems to be quite clear is, this is not just a one shot and you're out of here experience. It seems like this is a realm we keep coming back for however many lifetimes. So we're not really fully truly aware of what the purpose of everything here is. And we have no idea what the things that are happening right now, what kind of the 10 steps ahead, 10 lifetimes ahead, thousands of years ahead is. So we almost have to play it by ear,
Yeah.
and do our best, with the tools we have in the current moment.
That's brilliant, man. I really like what you said. I really like the idea of don't pay it back, pay it forward, moving forward, and also the vibrating at a different frequency. That is really what we're talking about when we talk about creating parallel systems and creating ways of wealth, creating ways of health, creating communities that are outside the systemic poisoning. That is literally vibrating at a different frequency. And that's also your point about how we don't have the perspective to see things from the ultimate reality, you know, kind of like when something happens in life, shit happens, and it's easy to be like, oh, woe is me, shit happened. But oftentimes after a couple years, sometimes even a few months, you have that bird's eye view and you look at the occurrence that you were so upset about at the time, and you're like, oh, well, thankfully that happened, because this and this and that wouldn't have happened without that, you know?
Exactly.
And so holding fast to that awareness, even when you're in the midst of it, that's really like where character is forged, and it's like where you're really tested. But yeah, I like that a lot.
It's hard. I'm sure it must be very difficult for many people that have had to go through the suffering. And you know, I'm not in any way, shape, or form excusing it. You know, these people are, I believe, should pay a very high price for what they're doing to humanity and what they've done and continue to do. You know,
And I believe that they will. I
yeah,
believe in the how when you the idea of hell is not necessarily like this fire and brimstone place where you get condemned to, but rather it is a place where you drive yourself to through your actions and through your orientation on earth. So
yeah.
I do believe that these people who are puppeteering this nightmare system, they will have to face it in their own time. It might not be until the next reality, but they are not going to manifest themselves in a heavenly reality. You know, it's not going to be that way.
Absolutely. They're borrowing from future bliss to have power now, so they're borrowing this. But when it runs its course, it's like they're going way back down to square one in terms of, you know,
Yeah.
if we can imagine all the infinite planes, and at the end is, you know, the all. These guys are going way back down to fucking. I don't even want to insult like grains of sand with that kind of sort of rudimentary consciousness, but that's sort of an analogy of like down to the complexity of like the most basic particle. You know, that's kind of the direction they're gonna rise up and then fall down, that kind of way.
Really quick before you get to the final question, Emanuel Swedenborg, I believe it was in the book Heaven and Hell, he talks about how people who spend their lives in covert activities, and they spend their lives, they find their success through deception, lies, misleading, all that kind of shit, the intelligence, agency, all that bullshit, that he had a vision that when these folks pass on to the next realm, what they are driven to by their own hearts, their own self, is a reality where he saw they were in windowless rooms, underground windowless rooms, huddled in corners, whispering to one another, you know, because that is how they lived. That's where their heart was, so that when they went to the next realm, they went to where their heart drove them. And you know, it's important to also reiterate that it's not necessarily about vengeance. It's about like universal karmic laws, and how, yeah, I call it the adversary, that the force of parasitism that creates, destabilizes situations and leeches energy in the form of like negative emotions and stuff like that for their own immediate gain. You can't do that without offending the natural order, the karmic order of things. So it's like, it's not just like, it's not my job to save the world. It's not my job to bring these people to justice myself, but the universe, the way of things will take care of that. And then in the meantime, I just have to always, like you said, pay it forward, and yeah, really like live my life, allow it to be fuel, you know, like the pain I feel is fuel that drives me in, you know, especially in those times where I'm feeling less than great or want to give up. It's like I can harness this energy of the feeling of hopelessness that I experienced watching my parents' health deteriorate, is like, now it's fuel for me to inspire others to maintain hope, and also give practical, tangible ideas and facts and advice to help people live fully. So
Yeah, bro, I like that. Again, it's one of those things where I'm truly at a loss for words. It's I have no idea what to say. I just remember, I literally just came to me. There was a story of the Buddha. This young mom, she lost her baby, and she was really distraught. And they told her, go. The Buddha was still alive at the time, and they said, go visit the Buddha. He will help you through this. And she explained everything to him, and he listened very compassionately, and he gave her a task. She said, go and find me a mustard seed from a house or a home that has never had anyone die. And she went, and to make a long story short, she went from house to house to house, and she heard story after story about just regular humans experiencing the pain and the sorrow of existence in this realm. Parents, kids, relatives, uncles, aunts, brothers, sisters. And she heard so many of these stories that I forget the end of the story, but she felt such deep compassion. I believe the end of the story was that she felt such deep compassion from hearing all these stories, so much empathy, that she went back to the Buddha and this became a disciple or a student of his to learn, how to suppose transcend some of this stuff, which I'm not sure all of it can be transcended, but there's definitely a lot of teachings there that can help one.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, facing things for what they really are, and being able and allowing yourself to sit with discomfort and not immediately jumping to these like pat answers of like, oh, like the degradation of language, for example. Like, don't just talk about transcending or being mindful, but really like allow yourself to sit with what is actually going on at every given moment. That there's so much richness there. So.
Sure, brother, for sure. Well, let me take it to the solutions talk question. So we always like to end on a positive note with this question. So, bro, Raven, what are you doing that others can do also to increase their freedom, self-reliance, autonomy, and or resilience to the challenges that we face this decade and beyond?
Nice, easy question to end things off. All right, well, let's see. So I'm going to go with what my gut reaction was to that question. My gut reaction was that I'm keeping my physical and mental and spiritual self in the best possible shape that I can. And so that includes like exercising regularly. It includes like constantly testing my limits physically, like integrating exercises. Like I'm going to start now with like kettlebells and stuff like that, like maintaining a strong body so that you can also then have that strong mind and the energy and the stamina that's required for whatever it is that's coming. I say on my podcast all the time, strap in, strap up, and stay centered, because we're in for some action. I'll put it that way. I don't know exactly what it's going to look like, but there's some action coming. And so I want to make sure that I'm strong enough to be able to like be there for my community, for my loved ones, and for myself. So keeping a strong physical body, always, again, knowing enough to know that I don't know everything, and always maintaining an open mind. So that is hard work, because it's easy to get into echo chambers and the truther community and the independent media. Very easy to start getting into echo chamber situation where you're only consuming media that reaffirms your own biases. You're cutting off anything that's inconvenient to you or that you don't want to look at. So it's like hygiene. So I'm constantly having to remind myself, like, you don't actually know everything, and you have to listen to other ideas and be open to other ways of thought. And so that's keeping that flexibility of mind, I think, is crucial. And that also ties in with like being able to dialogue with everybody. I don't want to set limitations on myself with who I can dialogue with, who I can learn from. I want to maintain so open while still being grounded in myself and my beliefs that I can engage in dialogue with anybody about anything. So I would say strong, healthy body, flexible mind. And then, as we spoke about before, for me, it's maintaining my meditation practice for my emotional and spiritual well-being as well.
Love that, bro. It will be very funny if nothing happens the rest of the decade. That was the rest of it, and then like 2030 comes, and then Agenda 2030 was all about just like, oh, we're just trying to clean up the environment, and all these conspiracy people, all the normies would be like, you bunch of fucking retards. Where you've been going on about for the last 10 years, you fucking retards. We just, all of us got free electric cars, and like it's totally cool, okay?
Yeah.
And not a single soul has been microchipped. You idiots. That'd be hilarious, right?
It really would.
Imagine.
I wish that I had any kind of faith that could happen, but I do think that there is so much pushback against. The pushback is growing all the time against the transhuman agenda, and the pendulum has a way of swinging. So, like, I know you were speaking in jest, but it's very possible that we find ourselves in 2030 that we have achieved some sort of parallel society, and we're moving towards our own optimum health because people like yourself are spreading very important knowledge, and people are understanding how to take care of themselves in a good way. So it's like, regardless of what the agenda is for 2030, I think we can have our own agenda for 2030.
Yeah, man. It's like you said earlier, if you don't have a plan, you're gonna become part of somebody else's plan. So, folks listening, we have to have a plan. What do we? It's like, what we have to have an intention for our life. What do we want to achieve? What's the work we want to do? We have to figure that out and work towards it. Otherwise, just coasting through life, the waves, the wind will take you. It's like they say, if you don't know where you're going, any road will take you there. And unfortunately, the current road is fucking tyranny and a bunch of other unspeakable, horrible shit. So
Yeah,
time to actually do something about that for ourselves.
absolutely. Yeah, get to know your neighbors and be a part of your community. And I think it's important to push back against the culture of like snitching, or it has to do with not judging and leading by example.
Yeah.
So I just think, yeah, pay it forward, don't pay it back. And I really appreciate everything you're doing to educate and optimize and illuminate. And I'm just very excited to continue speaking with you. And you're going to come on my podcast, the Barbarian Noetics podcast, real soon as well.
Thank you so much, bro. Appreciate that. It's what an absolute pleasure to have met you and to call you a friend now. Speaking of your podcast, can you tell the listeners where they can find you on the internet, please?
For sure. Yeah. Barbarian Noetics. It's up on all the platforms. So wherever you listen to podcasts, the Barbarian Noetics is there. And I also invite people to check out my video show that I have with my co-host, Dr. Sylvie Salinger. And that's up on Rockfin, rockfin.com, ROKFIN.com/Barbarian Yak Fest. All one word. Yak,
And
like
what's
the
that about?
animal. So the tagline for that one is Stomp the Great Reset. And it's
Okay.
myself. And I have other interviews as well sometimes. And sometimes I'll do solo videos. But it's really a complementary channel to my podcast. So if you like what I'm doing on my podcast and you want to dive in and hear more perspectives on the topics, and the video show is a little bit more focused on like current events, but really trying to view things from a different perspective, from a positive perspective, and always bring it back to keeping that open mind and moving towards solutions.
I just went to Rockfin, and the first comment I saw addressed to you is, your questions were more interesting than his answers. Let's just leave it at that. So we don't want to like shit on the guest or anything, but that's fucking amazing. I love that, bro.
Yeah, we're building a really awesome community there. So come check out the Rockfin and
Awesome.
follow the podcast. And Onward and upward.
Yeah, bro, I love that. I should use Rockfin more. Do they have an app, by the way?
They do.
Oh, they do, yeah.
They do have an app.
Okay.
It does occasionally have a few bugs here and there, but I still appreciate any sort of free speech platform. I'm all about supporting the free speech platforms. Right now, I'm up on Rockfin, but I do have a goal to get up on Odyssey soon, and there's good things coming. So
yeah, it's a lot of work, bro. Keep doing the good work, bro, and just you'll be back on here, so I'm sure that the listeners enjoyed this one, and we'll cover more. I you're such a hilarious dude. Maybe we can do one more humor based one when you come back. Maybe we can play some of your skits if we figure out how to play them through the call here. I think we can just I'm trying to not just have the solution focus, which is obviously awesome, but I'm trying to incorporate more of my personality, because I had a friend, he told me like a couple of years ago, he said, dude, your podcast is really good, but it's very serious, and you're like the least fucking serious guy I know. That's so weird. I know. And he's like, a lot of people listen to podcasts to unwind and stuff. So have you thought about like just letting your personality ooze through? So lately I've been kind of letting more and more of my I guess I was dropped on my head a little bit too much when I was a kid. So the retardation is seeping through, and people are like, oh, okay, this guy's changed. Is he getting like some heavy metal toxicity? Is changing his personality or something? I don't know.
Hey, a little bit of neurodivergence goes a long way. I love it. And I would love to come on and have a kind of a humor infused conversation. I think laughter is absolutely essential. Nobody likes a person that takes themselves too seriously. So I'm right there with you.
I'm just thinking out loud here, but we could take like the top 10, 15 figures that are part of the Great Reset, like Bill Gates, Klaus Schwab, all these other guys, and just like psychoanalyze them, say who hurt them. Like, okay, Bill Gates, probably his uncle touched him. This guy, his mom didn't hug him or something like that, and figure out, I don't know, just throwing ideas out there,
Yeah, what did beagles do to Tony Fauci to create such anger against?
Yeah, dude, come on, like who doesn't like dogs? Like who hurt you, bro? Tony.
He was bit by a beagle puppy as a baby, and he's just held on to that grudge his whole life.
Yeah, man, little prick. It's always these guys with the Napoleon complex, bro.
Always.
Anyway, Raven, once again, bro, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you too. Looking forward to speaking with you again soon.
Okay, I give in. You got a friend? Then meet me and my man around 10. You see, I play a too short tape, just to let you tricky little girls know I'm not fake. A little anxious, cool girl, get comfy. Dim the lights and plug the phone, cause it bugs me. I'm wearing Timbs with the tutu at my waist. Apple juice is cold, and I'm in the place. Sometimes I think about you. Sometimes I think about your whole crew. I got style, so I relax, knowing I wanna die, then it take 20 laps. Hop in my mom car and let's take a ride. Then maybe you will realize I know she saw me.
On a Sunday afternoon, me and the crew just jamming the oldie tune, sipping on a cold bottle of brewski. Gave over a swig, he passed it back to me. Right about then up came some other homies, Micah, Eli, Pete, Jay, Smooth, Phil, and Larry. Busted out the ice chest, Phil popped the cooler. Eli and Pete drunk brew, nothing better to do. Micah's cup, was filled with bird. Jay Smooth had a cold glass too, you know it. Word, girls at the picnic mess preparing the food. The sky was clear and the weather was cool. Kids at the playground playing on the merry-go-rounds. All the cars cruising, bumping their funky sound. Cause it's Sunday, last day for a fun day. Back to business as usual come Monday. At the park, everything went real smooth. On a Sunday afternoon.
We were chilling in the park, just waiting for the sun to go down. It was me, Shiro, and the home
said chill. All the vatos in the park stayed ill, playing horseshoes to win a bill. The garnets are lapping on the grill. So now we eat. The cops cruise by looking for the booze, but what Ruben had was plain and simply apple juice. Coming up short, just like a fool. Back to his car with nothing he could do. All the cars in the parking lot, low profile, and everywhere you look, you see somebody styling. Cars with lifts rolling deep with booming sounds. It's a good time to cruise around in the parking lot where the brownies were stacking, and all the vatos were looking for some action.
We were chilling in the park, just waiting for the sun to go down. It was me, Shiro, and the homies, a lighter shade of brown.
Well, the sun was setting and it began to get dark, and we were getting ready to leave the park. We had a good time. Yeah, we had a good day.
Packed our stuff up and we was on our way. Yo, macking the brownies as we all cut them off at the pass. But they was all acting soft as we pulled up. They were acting all shy to us, but essays, yo, wanna know who's the flyers. We found out and Jimmy hats were passed out. Unas the fea, so hey, yo, peps, you jacked out. Coming up short, they gave us no run. So yo, homies, consider this a dry run.
Time to cruise the boulevard, time to have fun. Guaranteed to find a brownie while the night is young. We were rolling, yeah, looking real smooth, cause cruising witty is how we ended our afternoon.
Smooth, chillin', just kicking it. With the top down, I low to the ground. I know